GoldMine with MasterMine. To be clear, this is not a generic training on how to use GoldMine or even how to use MasterMine for GoldMine. We'll be happy to point you to recordings of other online presentations that cover those topics. Our focus today is thinking at a high level about how you use GoldMine and how you can get it to deliver the information you need to run your company or your department more effectively. Our presenter today is Rob Macklak, a prominent figure in the GoldMine world since 1999 and a leading thinker about how GoldMine actually gets implemented to make businesses more efficient and to accomplish specific tasks in sales, marketing, and customer service. He is also the developer of MasterMine for GoldMine application, which you will see a good deal of today. So now, here's Rob to begin the presentation. Take it away, Rob.
All right. Thank you very much, Carnegie. As Carnegie said, thank you all very much for taking the time to visit with us today. I'll very quickly introduce who we are here and get down to our agenda. So MasterMine is has been an actor in the GoldMine space since 1999. We are a much used and awarded add-on application to GoldMine. MasterMine for GoldMine that is. It is our application, MasterMine, is actually used by or has been implemented in nearly 1,500 companies since our inception in 1999. We have a lot of direct experience actually with many more GoldMine applications out there because we have used our tools to help people use GoldMine for many, many years and have actually dug around inside of GoldMine and in part so that we get oriented with the people that we're working with, but also just to educate ourselves regarding how GoldMine is used out there in the world. And we currently provide active support and data management for over 300 companies out there. We are an authorized GoldMine dealer. That does not mean that if you work with us, you need to in any way stop using the GoldMine dealer that you are comfortable with and have a long-standing relationship with. But we are in a position to provide in a broad way GoldMine support. So just wanted to kind of quickly introduce myself that way so that you understand that I spend my time advising people how to get the best value out of their GoldMine investment. And I typically do that within the context of fixing and sort of leveraging people's GoldMine data. So quickly, what MasterMine application is with GoldMine. Very briefly, essentially what it does is give you the ability to do reports, to do data manipulation, to do process management within GoldMine, and it does this by marrying really functionality that's built into Excel and in GoldMine to make the two together a very powerful combination for really making GoldMine a very effective way of operating your business. Our agenda today is I'm going to talk about, from a very high level, really, managing GoldMine. Now, GoldMine management involves managing your GoldMine application, of course, but as Carnegie said, we're not here to talk about everything there is to do with GoldMine management. What I won't be talking about here today really is customizing your GoldMine user interface or how to set up sales processes or marketing processes. I won't talk about technical things like how to set up GoldMine automated processes or integrate GoldMine with your website or set up GM Plus views into your accounting system, connecting that. These are all really important topics related to GoldMine management. And they should be handled internally by your company or I should say together with experienced people. So again, talk to your GoldMine partner about these topics. They are very important and they are, for the most part, kind of technical, but they're also very top level in terms of making your GoldMine, in terms of thinking about your GoldMine and making it work appropriately with your particular business. Very strongly urge you to work with your GoldMine partner on those kinds of topics. What I will talk about today is overseeing and controlling and managing the daily workflow of your business through GoldMine. That, I think, actually drives everything else. It actually drives the specific needs that you have for those technical, how to set up GoldMine kinds of things. So our agenda for today is really going to be what you see on your screen there. Talking about managing your business. So managing users and teams through GoldMine, managing processes using GoldMine data, and these processes typically are things that run through the GoldMine interface, or at least are fed by data that's in GoldMine because of people who use GoldMine. But we won't actually talk about the processing of things inside the GoldMine interface. You'll see here in a moment what I mean by that. And then we'll talk about managing GoldMine itself, which it must be, of course, administered typically by somebody who's more of a technical end kind of person, but which really can be handled by let's say the less technical, by people in admin or by management even. And at the end, I will try to leave room for some questions, but we have a very this is obviously a pretty big topic that we're going to be talking about today. So I would ask you as I go along here, post your questions in the question dialog in GoToWebinar, and we will attempt to cover those as well as we can along the way here. So, actually I want to go back here. So I'm going to switch over actually to live GoldMine here in just a moment, and Excel. You will see a lot of Excel today. I'll try to keep clear the connection between what I'm talking about and what you're seeing in Excel on the front end, and how that relates to what's behind it in GoldMine. Again, our focus is on managing key aspects of the business through GoldMine data, not necessarily in the GoldMine application itself, but really through reports and through hands-on manipulation of the data in Excel. So with that, I'm going to switch over and bring up GoldMine. What I'm going to show you here is a number of ways of working with GoldMine data, and what you should be seeing on your screen now is GoldMine itself. In particular, before I actually start digging into this data, I want to point out how this GoldMine that we're looking at here is set up. Now, this is probably analogous to your ways of using GoldMine. I'm not going to do anything terribly special here, but I want to point out that we've got, as you probably do, a record type or contact type field called Key 1 here, in which we designate whether we've got a prospect or a customer or a piece of machinery or some other sort of basic account unit within GoldMine. We've also got an industry field indicating with a set of possible values what industries this company is in. A score field where we've got A, B, or C, which is also a very typical kind of a GoldMine setup where you're indicating the quality of the prospect that you're working with there, or the quality of the customer, something regarding their priority, in other words. The sales rep, these would just be simply who is the person who's assigned to manage this account, and then our campaign field here is actually a sort of a specific field for this demo that's really set up to just indicate where did this lead come from. In other words, which marketing campaign resulted in this lead being in this database. Now I'll really deal mostly with these top four, as well as some other custom fields that we've added into this particular database. We've got a sales stage indicating where are they within our sales process. Another field here, a couple of fields actually, year-to-date sales and last year's sales. That's the dollar amount of what did they purchase from us. These fields, by the way, are fed by in this case, internal sales data. In other words, closed sales records that would appear on the history tab in the individual records, but they can be fed from outside sources. I won't actually go into the process of doing that very much, except to say that is one of the valuable things that you can do with MasterMine. So that's really what I wanted to show you here. Also, I'll just mention that, like many of you, this demo database is set up to show both pending calls. In other words, each sales rep is responsible to actually schedule calls, and then when they make those calls, they actually go into GoldMine and complete those calls, and they become completed history items within GoldMine. So that's the basic setup here of what we're looking at with GoldMine. Now, what I'm going to go into is let's talk about the first topic here, which is managing users and teams within GoldMine. And that's sort of the major thing, because GoldMine itself is, of course, an application that's meant to be a coordinating mechanism for sales teams. I'm going to start, actually, I'm just going to create a quick report here that's going to pull main contact information for me, and specifically I'm going to include these key fields that I just described to you in GoldMine, as well as a couple of other ones. And the main purpose here really is just to sort of get an overview of the account records that are in GoldMine, and talk a little bit about the importance of working with this stuff in list form and Excel form. So I'm going to actually include those fields there. I'm also going to grab a few more of them here, the sales stage, the priority. What did I also want here? I think I'll get the last year sales as well. Whatever I want to include here obviously would be fairly easy to do. I'll just go ahead and say finish, and we will create an overview of the records that are in this database. And that's really where I want to start here. So this is going to be an Excel overview of this same database. I'm going to minimize, or not minimize, but make Excel here a little bit smaller just so we can sort of see what we're looking at here in the table in relation to what's in GoldMine. So, so to start with, what I'm going to do is a fairly simple breakdown of the list that we have here in this GoldMine database, and I'm going to do it by sales stage. So there are 351, let's say, account records in GoldMine right now. Now, some of these are actual prospects and customers. Some of them are employees in the company and so on. That's a fairly typical way that that account records are kept in GoldMine. So one thing I want to do is filter on the record type here, so that I actually am going to remove, well, I'm going to leave in the ones that are typos for the moment of different types, but I definitely want to take the employees out of this report. I want to take the vendors out as well, and anything else that's inappropriate, I'm going to remove those. But the point being, this is my overview. This is my starting point for simply understanding what do I have in GoldMine. And I think that's from a management standpoint, understanding what you have is typically step one. It's closely associated with what do I want to have, what are our goals, what are we trying to get to, but what do we actually have in our database is a good start, just so you understand what the material is that you have to work with. So a quick report by sales stage, and I will also pull in sales rep here. Now this is, of course, overall what's in the database in the way of prospects and customers. I'll do another view of this that's just simply by sales rep, so that I can have an overview of my territories. When we're talking about managing users in GoldMine, what we really want to know is who's responsible for what and how well are they actually accomplishing the thing that they are assigned to do. Taking a sales team as probably the most common example here, this would allow us to see for the individual sales reps and what they're responsible for, where are their prospects within the sales stage. Now this does not yet address things like actual activity in GoldMine, scheduled calls, completed calls, forecast sales, and so on. We will get to that, but this is just our initial overview. So now what I'm going to do, I think I've sort of made the point here. There's a direct connection here between what you're seeing in Excel, what's in GoldMine. Maybe to sort of further illustrate this, I created this report here in part so you could see it being created, but really we could have just opened it up as an Excel workbook and refreshed the data, similar to what I'm doing right here. So I actually hit that button. It went and refreshed itself against the GoldMine data. So had we saved this outline for the report, last week, pulling this back and just simply refreshing it accomplishes really the same thing. Gets us to the point where we can actually see what we have in GoldMine. Now, I'll illustrate also just another connection here, because I think it's important to recognize. These numbers can be drilled down so that you see the detail that's beneath them. So if we wanted, for example, to look at the ones that are, let's say Tina's records, she has 13 that are accounts that are have a demo scheduled for them. If we double click on the 13, that will actually show us that list. We're still in Excel now, But this is a basic list, a GoldMine list. And with lists like this, we might go various different directions. We'll talk about using them to manage processes and so on here before too long. But really, what I really want to establish right now is just the connection between this and GoldMine. So if I am in my report and I'm looking at Einstein parts and labor, and I want to get over here to GoldMine and work with that. Now, one obvious thing to do is go over to GoldMine and actually type in the name Einstein Parts and Labor and look it up. If I want to do that for just one, that's fine. If I want to do that for 10 of them because I want to make some changes or I want to work with the data, it's actually a lot easier to just simply double-click, and as you see, it pops that record up in GoldMine and you go to it. I'll come back to that function here in a bit, but first let's just talk about overseeing this GoldMine data. So I'm going to maximize Excel here so that we've just got the space here to work with. One thing I want to do is emphasize that one view into your GoldMine data by itself isn't obviously going to cut it. You have a number of different fields now. In this case, I pulled, if you can see over on the right-hand side here, I pulled a number of different fields in here when I created this report, and I did that deliberately so that I would be able to see this information various different ways, to ask some questions and get some answers fairly quickly. So in this case, my initial question was, well, how do my accounts break down by sales rep, and then within each sales rep, what is the stage of sale that that those accounts are in? A second level to go with this might be something like this. I'll clone this sheet, and rather than sales stage, really I'll look at it not from a sales management standpoint so much as from let's say a lead quality kind of a standpoint. So here's by industry who our leads are, who our prospects are, and maybe the priority, the A, B, or C of how good we thought those leads are when they came in. And these would be the priority as set by the sales rep after they've talked with them. Same information overall, but we're obviously presenting it in a very, very different way so that we can see overall in our database by industry what's the quality of the leads that we have, and maybe even specify a particular sales rep so that for that sales rep, here's how those leads are distributed. For another sales rep, here's how those leads are distributed by industry and quality, and so on. That's just one way of kind of getting an overview, both an overview of the accounts as they exist in our GoldMine, as well as how they are being managed or how they are distributed within our sales funnel. And that's sort of step 2 there. So having an overview is one thing. Being able to actually go down and see what does the sales funnel look like, how are the leads distributed. That's kind of the next step down the list. I'm going to try to get a little bit more control over my screen on the other side here. Okay. So that's really sort of a view of the static information that's in GoldMine at the contact level. So the static information, that is information that doesn't change very much over time. Now, of course, the individual names that you're working with and that kind of information changes, but it doesn't. But it's not what I would call the activity information in GoldMine that you find typically under pending and history. Pending and history is really about the flow of your it's about the flow that your users engage in within GoldMine. And why is that important? Well, we're talking about managing the day-to-day workflow of the business as well. So I'm not going to generate any more new reports here, so I'm going to close my report generator here, but I will pull up a couple of examples here. So sales activity is a good example of a report that shows us either past activity or new scheduled sort of calendared activity by our sales reps. This in particular is one thing that people ask us for very frequently is I want to be able to know, what do my sales reps do? What have they actually accomplished in terms of phone calling, for example? How many calls do they actually do in various different time periods? Now, usually your time periods are going to be somewhat shorter than what you're seeing here. This is a view of different users side by side, how many calls they completed in various months. Now, this is a demo database, so we have not a great deal of information in here. But you might do something like week by week. So you might take for the year 2014 and show the actual week by week calling activity. Now I've got it rolled down here by week in August, but you might show the most recent weeks that you have data for, as I've got here. And the idea here is to be able to actually see progress over time. That would be sort of the vertical here would be progress over time, and then progress in comparison to different sales reps. And then, of course, for the overall enterprise, here's how many actual outreach attempts we have within the whole sales department. So as a sales manager, you might use this report really to have to understand what it is that's actively happening. Now, there are a lot of different ways of considering this information. You may not care really, for example, how many times did people dial the phone. What you really want to know is how many contacts did they actually have, how many people, and of course who did they actually contact. So you might adjust this by saying, well, let's just look for certain result codes. COM in your GoldMine database, when you complete a history item, complete a call, might indicate that an actual communication was had. Or you may have multiple ones. Now, this is something you cannot do with just what's built into GoldMine. That is, choose specific result codes that that'll indicate something meaningful for you in terms of the list of completed calls that you've got. If you've got a tool such as MasterMine that gives you a little better overview of what's happening in here, then you can manage those from a management standpoint. You can really understand what the sales team is actually accomplishing and help to give them guidance. I'll show you a couple of examples here. Here's an actual specific call report by rep. So this is actually the same information, obviously with more fields represented here, where we're showing who was actually called in a certain time period by a certain user with the notes. Could be history notes. We could be also showing at the same time the notes from the next pending call. We're including in this case the actual date of the calls and filter on that, so on. This is something else very commonly requested and needed by sales management, so that you get what it's considered a sort of traditional sales report. Sales call report. It's also, if you consider this a way for, if you think about it, it's a good way for actual sales reps to see their own progress, to identify, what did I actually do this week, this month, whatever it is. How is the sales management looking at it, and what can I do in terms of how I fill in information in GoldMine so that it will report out in the way that it will actually inform them of what it is that I've done and what I've been doing. So this is a report. This is a pretty good example of a report that's useful at the sales management level, but also useful at the individual sales rep level. Of course, the sales rep can look at the individual calls that they've done, and within GoldMine you can actually see a list of sort of the raw company names and contacts of who you actually called. But what it does not give you is the ability to also go a level deeper and see the notes from those calls, or to filter it more finely according to the segment of leads that you've been working on, or the result codes or the activity codes and so on from what's in GoldMine. And there are various ways. Essentially, what you're looking for here is how much sales activity was there, who was actually contacted, what were the results, what was the timeliness of the follow-ups, maybe also where are leads that have not actually been followed up on, and get those into a list and actually provide that list back to sales reps so they can take some action on that. Essentially, what you want to do is maximize the coverage of your market. In other words, of all the leads that you have in GoldMine that are relevant to a particular sales effort that you're making, you want to make sure that you get to the highest percentage of those leads with an actual contact between your sales team and somebody on the other side. Not just simply that their phone was made to ring, but there was actual conversation that was had there, and that information is reflected in GoldMine. I continually go back to the idea that if you've got GoldMine and you've got it for a specific purpose, like you wanted to maximize your sales, your marketing coverage, you wanted to actually reach all the people that were our prospects in your database, then you need a way to monitor that, and so you need reports that will cover that as well. So still on the actual sales front, let's also look at sales forecast kind of reporting. So if you're managing a sales team, of course, one thing is what is the activity that they are doing in terms of just simply the raw effort of calling out and reaching out and so on. Another is what are the results? Where do we stand, and how do I understand and report up the sales forecast that we've got? So here's an example of a sales forecast report that gives you, in this case, a current month detail by sales rep, by year and month. Who do we actually have forecasts for in this month? Well, we'll call it current month. This is September of 2014, but of course we can specify whatever month is appropriate for you, and having some nimbleness to be able to move between months and compare them is, of course, very, very useful. But let's say this is our forecast for now October for a particular user, listing the individuals and grouping them by probability, those that are less than 50% likely, those that are greater than 50% likely, those that are less than 50% likely. And we've got various different ways of presenting that set up here within this demo report, but important to know that you can do this various different ways, whatever is really appropriate for you. I think on the other one we were looking at 2014. We were actually looking at October, but maybe we'll look at it by across the whole quarter, let's say fourth quarter. And I'm just setting this up as just another view into the same information. In this case, we're not looking at a specific, a detailed list of who's going to be doing the buying, although we might do it by product. So we actually want to know how are our different product groups working. We may have in our GoldMine data, in our actual GoldMine completed forecast records, the scheduled sales, we may have specific products listed, specific gadgets or specific widgets. In this case, we've grouped them together. So if I actually roll out the widgets, the values that you see here would be the ones that are actually in GoldMine, but for the purposes of reporting, in this case, we've rolled them up to show all the widgets in one column, all the gadgets in another, and by the user who's going to be doing those sales. And this is the dollar amounts or the number of sales, whatever it needs to be. In this case, there's also a graphic presentation of this, just regarding managing, again, the overall topic here of managing your business. Sometimes it's useful for you to have the individual numbers. Of course, because the individual numbers that speaks to how many dollars you're going to bring in the door. But a graphic presentation, as you can see, gives you a very nice at-a-glance understanding of what is out there, as well as some comparisons within it. Looking at this list, you might not know that until you spot this number that Rob's got the most forecast altogether, and it breaks out between gadgets and widgets this way. Here you have a very clear graphical understanding, and this graph and this table actually talk to each other so that they are, as the table changes, the graph changes, so that whatever settings you put in over here, if you change this to third quarter, your graph automatically shows you third quarter and vice versa. And that gives you, of course, a whole different level of understanding of where your sales stand and what what's being accomplished. So that's sales forecast. Also wanted to show you an example of a dashboard. This would be a simple dashboard that really is driven by tables like the other. This dashboard is probably is in some ways very similar to GoldMine's dashboard. From a management standpoint, I want to actually go up here and pull up the. Actually, I think I will pull up. This is the. Okay, apparently it's not going to come up for me that quickly. Okay, here we go. Here's a forecast dashboard that actually kind of does something sort of similar to the forecast we were just looking at. Your difficulty that you may have here with what's built into GoldMine is that you can select by various You can make various selections in here, but unless you've got a programmer here to rejigger this report for you, it's not going to take other information into account from within your GoldMine database. You may have had that experience already if you've worked with the built-in GoldMine dashboards. You know, if you've got custom fields that need to be taken into account in here or displayed or whatever, that's not going to be quite so easy. That will require those to be reprogrammed. I personally like this way of working with it much better, in part because I can put multiple dashboards on one page. Each one of these is just a component within a report, and these can all, what's behind all of these can appear on different tabs within the same workbook or can be on the same page. But this is a good way of having sort of an overview followed by some further detailed presentations of this information, all of which are tied to each other and give you, current information. So forecasting and dashboarding, that from a sales management standpoint, that's very often where sort of the entry point for starting to ask those larger questions about how do I manage my sales reps? How do I get an overview? How do I get a dashboard? How do I get essentially make it so that when I've got those things, I can turn those into action by directing my sales team with the information that I have. I'll take a small sidestep here and talk about GoldMine marketing as well. You're probably all familiar with the fact that GoldMine not only, hopefully there's sort of a back and forth feedback between your sales and your marketing, and that GoldMine takes care of both of them, or has functionality within it that makes it possible to take care of both of those pretty effectively. Where the difficulty usually comes in is in market segmentation. So what I've brought up here, this is a market segmentation report that shows me the leads that I have within GoldMine, and these may be leads, these may be sort of post-contact leads, or they may be leads that have just been simply imported into the GoldMine database as possible leads for our sales reps to reach out to. Either way, understanding those leads that you have within the database and doing a market segmentation so that you can direct the appropriate marketing messages to those segments is very important. So first, of course, is understanding what do I have. So I'll actually, let's do this. I'll go back to a particular year. So these are actually the leads that were added to our database. What we're looking at is I'm going to back this up. These are all of the leads that we have in our database by year within certain record types. Remember, in the past I took out ones that didn't apply. Let's remove employees and past clients, probably in vendors as well if we've got them. Yep. And so this is an overview by market segment of the leads that we have in the database. By industry down the left-hand side, if you've got an industry designation in yours, you may have SIC codes for breaking down your leads. If you don't, by the way, have SIC codes or DUNS numbers, or there are various ways of segmenting by industry your prospects. If you don't have that, you can import that information into your GoldMine data and make it label the existing leads that are in there appropriately so that you can have useful reports like this, so you can understand, to what extent are we actually covering the markets that we think we're covering, and in this case, what's the quality of the leads that we have within the GoldMine database. So we've taken, in this case, that score field A, B, and C, and broken it out so that you can actually see what are our A leads within each of these different industries, and so on. Of course, you might again take that a step further by sales rep. By whatever appropriate way of understanding your information. So with the market segmentation, of course, there's action that follows with this. A marketing manager who's working with the GoldMine data doesn't just want to know what do I have. They want to actually do a little bit of what I'll call process management. And so we start to kind of go into that next area that I wanted to cover here, which is not just seeing what you have and managing your users internally, but engaging in processing of prospects. So what do I mean by that? So for example, let's say that what we wanted, that we've segmented our data here, and we've segmented our prospects into, in this case, there's actually quite a few different segments. There are 45 different segments. Now we may group these in various ways. We might want to take all of our secondary ones and just leave them in a single column together. That's fine, just to reduce the number of segments that we're going to address. But let's say we have a marketing message that we want to go out to media type companies that are in our database, and we want to get, maybe we'll take all the A, B's, and C's and send one message to all of those. So looking at this, I can easily see, well, how many do I have in each of those segments? Well, I've got 19 A's and 14 B's and 25 C's and so on. Okay, that gives me the ability to actually count up, maybe and aggregate and group the ones that I want to send certain messages to, which I think is very important. So in this case, let's say we want to send one message to that's the same to all of the A, B, and C targets within media. Well, I'll use my MasterMine functionality here to just roll those up into a single column. My purpose being, I want to actually address those as a list. So when I double-click on that number, I've got the list that I want, that I can take action with. And there's various ways, of course, of working with a list like this. Maybe what I wanted to do is just simply get it into an Excel, a simple Excel list that has name, company, email address, or maybe has name, company, and physical address that I'm going to send out to a mailing house. Or if it's email address, maybe what I want to do really is take this sheet and upload it to Constant Contact. My segmentation was taken care of within the pivot table where I had the information. Now I've got it in a simple list here that can be simply exported. And I'm sure you've all done exports before from GoldMine. You probably don't need me to illustrate that here, but once you've got it inside of Excel, that's the easy part. You can copy and paste it out into an email, into another spreadsheet that you actually send out to your vendor, or actually use the Excel here if you're using the built-in GoldMine Constant Contact connection to actually send them from here into send them actually from GoldMine into Constant Contact. Now, Constant Contact does have a way of uploading information from a CSV file or an Excel file. So, and this is an Excel file, so I'm not going to show you that aspect of it. It's just simply a copy-paste in that way. But sometimes what you want to do is really identify the targets that you're going to hit inside of GoldMine. So in this case, I actually don't want to exclude some. I'm not going to select only some of the page. I'm going to leave all of the page selected. This page is the full segment that I was working with, and this might be, it might be tens, it might be thousands, might be hundreds of thousands. Excel can handle all of that, and once I identify, though, who I want to be sending this marketing material to, it's easy for me from here to actually send over to GoldMine and say, these are the ones we're going to for message number 1. You know, you would name the message in your case. And so what we're going to do here is an interaction back with GoldMine to actually make a list on the GoldMine side that will now, there are 58 members of that list. So now from GoldMine, we're sort of driving a process. So let me go back to our contacts view here in GoldMine. And at this point, you might be scheduling an email to go out. Actually, in this case, that would be actions and an email merge. And with your email merge, you would choose, of course, what's the message that you're sending. So you would have set that up as a template on the GoldMine side, and the recipient would be the group that I just created on the other side that was called, did I call it message? It's good to remember what you named your group. But if that's the group that you're sending to, you could say OK, and out would go those messages. I won't go into all the different ways that you want to group process things within GoldMine, but suffice it to say that most of the time in GoldMine, your individual users are really just addressing one record at a time. Your marketing manager hopefully is addressing them a little bit more at a time, but having some tools like this will help them to actually address them in large groups very efficiently to get your marketing messages out to the right people. Other thing related to marketing that I wanted to show you, and a fairly common thing, is marketing ROI, figuring out what is the actual value of leads that you have, or of the leads that have been generated through marketing. I hope I might have a recent version of that right here. I think I don't. Let's see, lead source. So I do have a report that I created a little earlier called Lead Source ROI. So, and this is just again, just kind of a visual. By the way, let me kind of emphasize, I'm using MasterMine, our own tools here to illustrate this for you, but hopefully you can understand that even if you have somebody, if you're paying a programmer to make, reports for you, or you've got somebody on staff who makes reports, the types of reports is what's important here. I do it within the context of MasterMine because it's fast and easy and quick to do, but it is, of course, possible to have somebody write you a crystal report that will give you, for example, like we're looking at here, a breakdown of the dollar forecast sales by, in this case, actually we've got both forecast and completed sales in GoldMine by the lead source. So what's the value of that? Well, if you're the marketing manager, of course, this helps to justify your budget, but not just justify, but actually help you figure out where is the best place to spend my budget. If the highest value potential sales that I'm getting out of all of my sales channels or of my marketing channels is trade shows, as shown by the source field that's in GoldMine and the associated leads or the associated forecast sales and completed sales that we have in GoldMine. If you've got that, then you can pretty easily identify, well, okay, by comparing our expenditures in trade shows with our dollars that came out of it for the year or for last year or for some period of time, that allows me to figure out, okay, where is the best place to invest our marketing dollars? And this might, your source field might be very, very general or sort of grouped like this, or you might really actually have sourcing information kept in GoldMine that gives you a great deal more detail about not only what were the customer referrals, but who specifically were the referrals that resulted in these sales, to roll that down, or further information about, well, how do these sources relate to these specific products that are being sold. In fact, if we included the product field here in our report, which we did, in this case I'll actually take the product groups. So we might have several different product groups represented in our reports. This is that gadgets and widgets that I explained earlier. This is a way of grouping, or we might actually show the individual products that are being sold. So you can bring that right down to the individual, the specific ones within the groups. And so in this case, I'm showing it in detail really so that you can get an idea of various ways of seeing overviews like this. But the key thing here is to be flexible and to have a presentation that gives you the valuable knowledge that you need in order to direct your marketing activity, which is, as I've said, more of a process-oriented thing in GoldMine than a management of people kind of issue. Okay, so there's one last set of things that I want to talk about here, and that's managing GoldMine itself from a technical standpoint. If you have people using GoldMine, you're probably familiar with the need to find out, for example, well, who's actually using GoldMine, or who's avoiding using it, who's actually working in it, and that has everything to do with the information that you expect for them to enter into GoldMine. So if you've got sales reps and you're expecting them when they make phone calls to actually complete calls in GoldMine, you can measure their activity that way. Now, some organizations don't actually do that. Some only want a call entered in GoldMine if a conversation was had. Or even more, let's say, loose, they'll leave it to where the sales rep is just simply left to, by their own choice, to decide what information do they want to keep in GoldMine so that they can bring it back into call reports for themselves, or when they're looking at the record in GoldMine, they'll be able to figure out by reading through their own history what's happened. I think that sort of loose management of people will sometimes work in some contexts, but the less loose you do it, the more you prescribe specifically how you want GoldMine to use users to use GoldMine, the more control you have over your business, the more you can actually tell both what happened in the past and what's going to happen in the future, and the less reliant you are on people who might walk out the door, or on just simple guesswork as far as what the appropriate next thing to do is. So that's all just by way of saying the more information people keep in GoldMine, the better in control of things you are, and how you work with that data, how you make sure that that information and data is complete and accurate, that's the last part here that I'm going to kind of focus on here. So managing GoldMine and managing the GoldMine data itself. A couple of good examples. In fact, I'm not going to. Well, actually, I still have our lead source. Actually, here we go. The main contact information. I still have this report up. This is a good example of where, because you've got an overview of what's in GoldMine, you can tell where the gaps are. So here there's a gap where there are 21 records. This is just under Nancy H's name. And if we were to change this to all, as the GoldMine database responsible person, may not be in the IT department, it may be the sales administrator or somebody else. One of the things you want to know is where are the leads that we've imported into our database or that have been entered manually by users, where someone neglected to put some value into the industry field. Just one example of where that might be the case. And then what are we going to do about it once we find that out? Well, first off, of course, we want to know who those are. In this case, all we know is that there's 32 of them and that they break down in priority certain ways. If I double-click on the 32, of course, there's the list. The next thing that the person who's administering the GoldMine database probably needs to pay attention to is, well, where are the gaps? And those gaps show up pretty quickly here because of the fields that we chose to include. So we've got our key fields, our record type field in the industry, and so on. And so the person who's in charge of administering GoldMine itself needs to run reports like this and know what it is, know where the gaps are, and then fill them in. So knowing where the gaps are, that's one thing. That's very straightforward because you can see it here, right here on the screen. What are we going to do about it? One thing we could do is just make a list and send a list over to the sales rep and say to the sales rep, okay, your job is to actually go to these records individually, whether you need to call them up one by one or do a little bit of research, or maybe you have a research department, you can send it to them. They can go ahead and do the follow-up and find out what the values are that are supposed to be in these fields. What industry is the prospect in would be a good example. Or if they can, somebody's going to need to go back and figure out, well, what was the source of this lead in the first place, and fill that in. Now, these can be handled one by one. Of course, if you've got the MasterMine tool and you are Nancy H. and you're just working on your own leads, you might do something like this. Let's sort them. You might only work on the ones that are yours, and you might go and drill down to them one by one. So Rachel Barley here, if you go to that record, make a call, fill in the information. Okay, really that should be a prospect. All right, go to those, move on to the next one. So we can actually get this down to a very fast process, an efficient process for an individual to go through these one by one. Or you might actually have them go through and fill in, and this is especially going to be the case where you've got, let's say, a lot of users, but not all of them have MasterMine. Or you've got an external source of information where you actually want to fill in the information into GoldMine, and you need to have somebody actually fill it in on the spreadsheet, but then you want to be able to import that information into GoldMine. That's a common way that people actually wind up using MasterMine. So you might do something like, okay, industry. So the industry on this one might be engineering, and on this one is food, and you can sort of see where by assigning this sheet to somebody to fill in, they could actually wind up filling in the actual values for all of these. I'm just going to take those as an example. And then after the Excel spreadsheet is filled in, if you've got MasterMine, the tool, you actually have the ability here to actually push that information over into GoldMine as actual information that's going to fill in those fields. So when we were on Rachel Barley's record just a moment ago, the industry field was blank. But if we go here and actually take these and quickly update those, here I would have actually filled in, I'm going to stop processing there. So it went down, it did 21 of them. So if I go over to Rachel Barley's record now, you'll see it says engineering in the industry field. So you know, that is a really good mechanism once you identify the holes in your data to actually get them filled in. And if you think about data quality, and hopefully you do fairly frequently if you're a GoldMine administrator, you need to be able to clean up after importing data, because the data that comes in, there is a built-in GoldMine Excel, actually a GoldMine Excel application for importing data into Excel, from Excel into GoldMine. And that's the most common way that large amounts of data get into GoldMine, but I'll say just from experience, and I have a lot of it, imported data always has some issues with it. Something wasn't complete, something was labeled wrong, something was, large sections of it didn't work out really the way it was supposed to be. This is your way of actually getting that fixed and straightened out in an efficient way so that people can move on with that imported data. So we're talking about filling in gaps, cleaning up errors, working with deduping. A big issue with a GoldMine list might be not so much what happened with the information that was brought in, but where do we have duplicates within our records? And this is actually a pretty quick and easy way to do. In this case, I'm making an alphabetical list by company of all the contacts in this database. This is a fairly well deduped list. You might find for yourself a lot more duplicates. You would just see them in this list actually. Here we go. There are 3 examples where, well, we've got company name Banana Republic and the actual contact name has Banana Republic in it. So those would be ones that somebody who's managing the GoldMine database would drill down on, actually go to the records themselves, maybe make changes to it. In this case, they're just would do better to just add individual contact names to them. A couple of other thoughts here on examples of this before we wrap up. Alarms. If you can build a report that shows you the actual alarms that are scheduled in GoldMine, you probably will have noticed that in GoldMine, if you use alarms, most users pretty soon or eventually get overwhelmed by the number of alarms that they have in GoldMine, so that when they launch GoldMine, an alarm dialog comes up and they just immediately shut it down. If that's the case for you, then you've lost this very valuable functionality in GoldMine, essentially by letting the function get overwhelmed by just too many things are set to be alarmed. If you do a report that shows here's all the alarms that we have set in GoldMine, and you may find that there are hundreds or thousands of them, so it's not very manageable to go to those records one by one and turn off the alarms, that combination of the report plus updater, that functionality of being able to make changes from inside of Excel, will allow you to turn off selectively large swaths of those alarms that are set out there and restore the availability of that alarming functionality inside GoldMine. That means you can have sales reps who set an alarm in GoldMine to go off at 2 o'clock this afternoon because at 2 o'clock they wanted to be sure and make this call, and they might even set it at 2 o'clock a week from now and still reliably have GoldMine tell them when they need to do something. If the alarm functionality is turned off, which it is for most people, you just don't simply have that anymore. So this is a way to get back on top of that. Just a couple of other quick examples. You can do a user log report that actually shows clicks and keystrokes in GoldMine, gives you an idea of who's using it and who's not. Managing the GoldMine mailbox is extremely important, especially if you're using the built-in GoldMine email client. You may find that users who've been on GoldMine for many years have huge GoldMine inboxes, and that inbox will bog down the system for everybody. And that needs to be managed, and it needs to be managed usually from an overview perspective. MasterMine actually has a built-in inbox report that you can just run. It's just a template. It just run for you, give you an overview of who's got what in their inbox, and with Updater, you even have the tools to eliminate or file either one, the emails that are just sitting out there that really don't need to be out there anymore. So you can selectively, delete the spam, but file under history the ones that actually have some value. And likewise, you could do reports from the GoldMine management level on lookups and adjust those, on alerts that are set in GoldMine, on well, actually members of groups and so on. So there's really quite a lot that you can and really should manage within GoldMine itself. So that's that is my talk really on managing things. I wanted to leave a little more time for questions here, but if you have any, or if you've thought of them in the meantime and would like to post them inside the question dialogue inside of MasterMine or inside of the GoToWebinar dialogue, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to go back to a quick summary here of what I've talked about just to kind of wrap this up. So while you are posting questions, if you are going to, just a quick kind of recap here. So the idea here with GoldMine and managing it appropriately through reports is to accomplish some really key things. I think you would agree that if you've got GoldMine and it's vital to your company, it's worth thinking about things this way. So getting your business activity as it's reflected in GoldMine to be efficient is at the top of the list. Secondly, and more specifically regarding sales, it's having monitored methodical sales process. If you don't have that, if you right now are feeling the need to more actively manage your sales process from the top level, or even as an individual sales rep, and you've just got more leads than you really understand, or a territory that you don't have a full grasp on, then this is actually the way to accomplish that. I talked quite a bit about using GoldMine for managing the marketing, and ultimately this is about wasting less time and having less doubt about the decisions that you make based on the information that you have in GoldMine. I'm going to throw up one quote that we had. Actually, a user just said this to me yesterday, and I got this down and put it in the slide for our presentation today. Said, I really think GoldMine, this is a longtime user of MasterMine, I think of GoldMine and MasterMine as two parts of the same thing, and really they are. They're two sides of the same coin, Excel and GoldMine working together to effectively give you the result from GoldMine that you were after when you implemented it initially. Last thing here is I'm going to make an offer for those of you who have who've come to our webinar today. If what you've seen me present here, hopefully it was useful for you from a generic level to just talk about what kinds of information you can and should be getting from GoldMine. But if you would like for us to actually dig into your GoldMine database with you, using the tools that I've got here, we can also talk about it generically without the tools. If you are on this call today, give us a call and schedule a sort of a test guided drive through your GoldMine data. It's easy for us to set up. We'll provide you a free hours guidance through your GoldMine database, and we can talk about various things. I put down some examples that are lead source, distribution analysis, similar to what we talked about in the presentation here. I didn't show you a report here of last contact by sales rep, but that's often kind of a key report that gives you insight into where are the leads that have not been recently, especially the valuable leads that have not been recently contacted by their sales rep within our organization. And the obvious next step is assign that contact to be made either by building a group in GoldMine, and you may assign the leads to a different sales rep. You may have that very sales rep work with the list and make sure that they do the calls by a certain amount of time, and so on. But really, if you are not monitoring your lost leads in your database that are not being followed up by sales reps, there's a lot of value there that you're missing out on. We might talk about sales forecast, your choice, really. So that's it. That's our presentation for today. I appreciate very much you taking the time to do this overview of GoldMine management with me. I'm putting my direct phone number on the screen here and my email address so that you can reach me. You can also contact your MasterMine representative or anyone else to get to kind of draw that connection for you between what MasterMine can do for you, what your reporting can do for you, and what GoldMine can do natively. So with that, if Carnegie, you are still on the call here.
I am.
Okay. And do we have any questions to handle?
There's one. Does MasterMine handle opportunity reporting?
Okay, really good question. So yes, what I demonstrated here was talking about reporting that related to that was really at the individual forecast sale or scheduled sale level. But yes, MasterMine will handle reporting of anything that's in GoldMine, whether it's opportunities, cases if you're using the case management in GoldMine, projects. MasterMine is a very mature product like GoldMine. It has seen everything that's in GoldMine, or from a practical standpoint, everything that people use in GoldMine, MasterMine has reports that relate to it. By the way, there's also some other things that, aside from the opportunities, and we've done actually some fairly sophisticated opportunity level reporting that shows like your sales cash flow projection for the year that might include your actual sales from the first part of the year and your forecast for the rest of the year all in one view, that allows you to actually either from the top level or from farther down really understand where your sales are going for the year. If there are there any other questions there, Carnegie?
That's what we have. That's it.
Okay, well thank you very much, Carnegie, and thank you everyone for your time today. I hope that this has been useful and enlightening. We look forward to working with you to help you make GoldMine pay off at whatever level that you are working with GoldMine now, and whatever your ambitions are for it. So thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.